The call of the unknown. The world is full of mysteries, but none as profound as the mystery of oneself. For years, we walk through life wearing masks, playing roles, and fulfilling expectations, until one day, something stirs within us. A whisper, a question. Who am I really? This is the story of a man named Daniel Carter, a successful corporate lawyer with a life that looked perfect on paper. A high-rise apartment, a luxury car, and a reputation that commanded respect. But beneath the polished surface, there was an emptiness, a gnawing feeling that he was living someone else's life. It began on a rainy Tuesday evening. Daniel sat in his office, staring at the city lights through the glass walls. The case files in front of him blurred into insignificance. His phone buzzed, another message from his fiancée, another reminder of the wedding plans he had been avoiding. He swiped it away and leaned back, closing his eyes. Then, a memory surfaced. A childhood dream he had buried long ago, the desire to travel, to write, to feel something real. He had laughed it off as childish fantasy, but now, it clawed at him with an urgency he couldn't ignore. That night, he made a decision. He packed a single bag, left a note on the kitchen counter, and walked out. No explanations, no goodbyes. Just the open road ahead and the weight of uncertainty pressing against his chest. His first stop was a small coastal town, a place he had visited once as a boy. The salt air, the sound of waves crashing against the rocks. It was familiar yet foreign. He rented a cabin by the shore, a stark contrast to his sterile penthouse. For the first time in years, he breathed. But the past doesn't let go so easily. One evening, as he sat by the fire, writing in a journal he had bought on a whim, his phone rang. It was his father. The voice on the other end was cold, demanding. Asterisk, what the hell are you doing, Daniel? You're throwing everything away. Daniel hung up, but the words lingered. Was he making a mistake? Or was this the first real choice he had ever made? The journey had only just begun. The shadows of the past. Weeks turned into months. Daniel traveled from town to town, working odd jobs, bartending, farming, even fishing. He met people who lived with a simplicity he had never known. A widow who taught him how to mend nets. A war veteran who spoke of loss and redemption over shared whiskey. Each encounter chipped away at the persona he had built. But self-discovery is not a linear path. One stormy night, in a rundown motel, Daniel found himself staring at his reflection in the cracked mirror. The face that looked back was thinner, rougher. But the eyes, those were the same. Haunted. He dreamed of his mother that night. She had died when he was 12, a quiet woman who loved poetry and the ocean. In the dream, she stood on the shore, her dress fluttering in the wind. That you're running. Asterisk, she said. Asterisk, but you can't outrun yourself. He woke with a start, the rain pounding against the window. The next morning, he bought a bus ticket to his hometown, a place he hadn't visited in over a decade. The streets were the same, but the memories were sharper. The park where he had played as a child, the library where he had hidden from his father's temper, and then the house. It stood at the end of a cul-de-sac, its paint peeling, its garden overgrown. His father still lived there, a bitter man drowning in regret. Daniel hesitated at the gate, his heart pounding. The door opened before he could knock. His father's eyes widened, then hardened. So you finally came back. The confrontation was inevitable. Words were exchanged, old wounds reopened. But in the midst of the anger, something shifted. His father, for the first time, looked tired. I never wanted this life for you, the old man admitted, his voice breaking. I just didn't know how to tell you. Daniel left that house with a weight lifted and a new question. If he wasn't the man his father had shaped, and he wasn't the lawyer society had praised, then who was he? The answer lay ahead. The light within. The final leg of Daniel's journey took him to the mountains, a remote monastery where monks lived in silence, their days spent in meditation and labor. He had read about it in a traveler's journal, a place where people went to find peace. The climb was grueling, the air thin, but with each step, he felt lighter. The monks welcomed him without question. For weeks, he worked alongside them, chopping wood, tending gardens, sitting in stillness. The chaos of his mind began to settle. One evening, the eldest monk approached him. Why are you here? Daniel hesitated. I don't know who I am. The monk smiled. Perhaps you never did. But now, you are beginning to see. It was in the silence that the truth came to him. Not in a grand revelation, but in a quiet certainty. He wasn't defined by his past, his job, or his failures. He was simply himself, flawed, searching, but alive. When Daniel descended the mountain, he carried no grand plan, only a notebook filled with stories, his own and those he had collected along the way. A year later, in a small bookstore by the sea, a man sat at a signing table. The cover of his book read, "The Journey of Self-Discovery." A reader asked, "Is this a true story?" Daniel smiled. "It's just the beginning." Conclusion: the journey of self-discovery is not about finding answers, but about learning to ask the right questions. It's about stripping away the layers we've accumulated and daring to face what lies beneath. So tell me, have you ever felt the call of the unknown? What masks have you worn, and what truths are you still searching for? The road is long, but every step brings you closer to the person you were meant to be. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away to find your way back home.